Usually when Trump tweets, I don't really pay too much attention to it because Trump is the kind of guy that likes to tweet to distract from other things that are going on. But when he starts tweeting about actual policy, then I do pay attention because there are people out there that believe what Trump has to say, and they'll read a tweet or see a statement from him and think that he's being honest because he comes off as a guy who is a no BS kind of person. And it's a large part of the reason why a lot of people who are tired of the typical politician voted for Donald Trump. So when he gets into issues like healthcare and starts trying to smear other countries on how they do their healthcare or how their healthcare system works, then I think it's time to do some fact checking and clear the air just to make sure that people understand that what Trump is saying is not true. Even if you are a Trump supporter and you think that he's telling you the truth, in reality, he's not. So he tweeted this out about healthcare this morning, saying, the Democrats are pushing for universal healthcare, while thousands of people are marching in the UK because their universal system is going broke and not working. Dems want to greatly raise taxes for really bad and non-personal medical care. No thanks. So, for people that are in the know, this tweet is littered with inaccuracies. But if you don't know, or even if you do know, it's really important to go over just how wrong that entire tweet is. Everything from what the march was about to the actual healthcare system in the UK. So, just to start off, here's what a British journalist, David Otwell, tweeted out in response to Donald Trump's tweet about their universal healthcare system in the UK, saying, they're marching to protect it, not to replace it with a privatized system. The National Healthcare Service is popular with voters across all parties. The anger isn't with the system, but with the lack of adequate funding. America spends a fortune on healthcare. It's not a cheaper system. And he attaches a graph here showing the percentage of the GDP spent on healthcare in the US in comparison to Sweden, France, Germany, and the UK. And you can see Sweden, France, Germany, and the UK all have universal systems and spend a lot less money on their healthcare system. Now, if you're living outside of the US and you have a universal healthcare system in your country, this is likely already obvious to you. But if you're living in the US and you have to rely on American media to get your news, then you probably don't have a clue or really a good idea of how terrible the American healthcare system really is. Now, just to get back to the actual march for a second, the march that Trump tweeted saying that it was about how much people hated the healthcare system in the UK. Well, here's the Guardian report before this Trump tweet discussing what the actual march is about, saying, the NHS protest. Thousands march to demand more cash for the National Healthcare Service. Bearing placards with slogans including, quote, more staff, more beds, more funds, and, quote, saving lives costs money, saving money costs lives, they chanted, keep your hands off our NHS, as they set off from Warren Street at lunchtime. The demonstration, called NHS in Crisis, Fix It Now, was organized by the People's Assembly and Health Campaigns Together. Marchers were addressed by speakers who outlined their experience of the pressures facing the NHS. One mother told how her daughter died after she had been allowed out of psychiatric care too soon. So now that we have a better idea of what the actual march was about, and it was clearly about people marching for more funding for the NHS, not marching against a universal system, here's also some reaction from Twitter from both the left and the right in support of UK's healthcare system. So Jeremy Corbyn, in response to Donald Trump, tweeted out, wrong. People were marching because we love our NHS and hate what the Tories are doing to it. Healthcare is a human right. And support for the UK's universal healthcare system was echoed by the UK's right wing as well. as Conservative MP and Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt tweeted out this: "I may disagree with claims made on that march, but not one of them wants to live in a system where 28 million people have no coverage. NHS may have challenges, but I'm proud to be from the country that invented universal coverage, where all get care no matter the size of their bank balance." So in the UK, this is a nonpartisan issue. Both the left wing and the right wing believe in a universal healthcare system, and the only real debate is on how much to actually fund that system. But there is no debate about its existence. The Tories, the Conservative Party in the UK, have no interest in completely taking away the NHS. But in the US, even Democrats can't agree to a universal healthcare system. And that's because of corporate influence, having the influence from the pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies that continue to push a privatized system because it obviously benefits them financially, but it doesn't benefit anybody else. Now, somebody else who does believe in the NHS, the National Healthcare Services System, the healthcare system in the UK, is somebody that is the whole reason I'm doing this video.
I had an instance in Scotland where a friend of mine was in Scotland recently. He got very, very sick. They took him by ambulance. He was there for 4 days. He was really in trouble. And they released him. And he said, "Where do I pay?" They said, "There's no charge." And not only that, he said it was like great doctors, great care. Yeah. I mean, we could have a great system in this country.
So even Trump, the guy that started this whole conversation, the reason I'm doing this video, because he lied about how terrible the universal system is in the UK. Even Trump wants or likes, approves of Scotland's universal healthcare system, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, Scotland is a country in the UK. So they're under an NHS system. And he's talking about how his friend got sick and there was no charge, great doctors, great care, he loved it. But a couple years later, that video was from 2015. A couple years later, he's tweeting out about how terrible universal coverage is. So this is why it's important to call this stuff out, because Trump still has a lot of supporters. And even if you're not a Trump supporter, but you're a conservative voter and you don't believe in a universal healthcare system, you have to be aware of what's going on outside your country, what other countries are doing. And whether you're in the UK or Canada or wherever, there aren't people trying to remove universal healthcare. Once universal healthcare is implemented, it doesn't go away. And that's because it has massive support. It's an obvious system. It's a basic right. It's something I don't even think about as a Canadian. We have universal healthcare. I don't have to think about it. I know it's a big topic in the US because you always have to figure out who's your insurer, what's your copay, all the charges you got to figure out when you get sick. But when I get sick here, there's nothing. I go to the doctor. I have a health card. I walk in, see the doctor. I leave. That's it. Sometimes if I need medication, I go pay for the medication. It's cheaper in Canada than in the US. And oftentimes if you have a full-time job and you have benefits, that pharmacare is covered. So you're paying a fraction of what you would normally pay. So these are all, it's so weird talking about this because to me it's just so obvious. There's no reason to debate this because there is no debate. A universal healthcare system is the only way to go. And it's not just Canadians and British people talking about this. Americans, by and large, want a universal system. In fact, a July 2017 AP NORC poll shows that 62% of Americans want the federal government to ensure health care for all. And that poll is backed by countless other polls, like this one from Pew Research that shows that 60% of Americans believe that the government is responsible for ensuring healthcare coverage. So once again, universal healthcare is not a crazy idea, and even Americans are now waking up to that. So I would love to pretend that there's some sort of debate here, and we could debate the pros and cons of a universal healthcare system. But there's no debate. The debate's over. Every time a country moves to a universal system, they don't go back. Do you know why? It's because a universal healthcare system, once implemented, is incredibly popular. People wake up to that, and all the propaganda talking against it quickly goes away once you actually experience it for yourself. So these debates around healthcare in the UK and Canada, they're never about removing universal coverage. The debate is only about how much funding should there be. So in Canada, there's debates around pharmacare. Should pharmaceuticals all be covered by the government, or should dental care be covered? And in the UK, the debate is about how much funding should be put into the NHS. The debates are never about taking away healthcare coverage. So when you see that, and just having this outside perspective that luckily I have as a Canadian, you can see how broken the debate is in the US around healthcare. Because really what you have in the US is this debate where both sides, the Democrats and Republicans, are being funded by corporate interests, private insurers, and pharma companies, putting money into these politicians to keep a private system going because they financially benefit from it. But in a universal system, you know who benefits? The actual citizens.